Hi, this is Si from Music Radar, and today I'm looking at Temperance Lite from Eventide, which is a fantastic new reverb plugin that you can grab for free until the end of this year. Temperance Lite is a little bit different from some reverbs you might have used because it uses modal technology. You might be familiar with the term modal from its use in filters or synthesis. What modal technology does is it replicates a space by breaking it down into lots of different resonant frequencies. Imagine each of these resonances like a tuning fork which vibrates at a specific pitch. In this context we call these modes. Temperance Lite can control the frequency, decay time, level and phase of each of these. When we combine thousands of these modes together, we can emulate the way a real-world space resonates, and we can control this with a high level of depth and customization. This level of control over the frequency spectrum lets us do some really interesting creative things that wouldn't be possible with algorithmic or convolution reverbs. So let's take a look. The most interesting thing about a modal reverb is it allows us to emphasize resonances around certain musical pitches. This is controlled by the central tempering control. We can use these musical notes around the edge of the dial here to select certain notes that we want to emphasize. The main temper knob controls how much of this musical tempering is applied to the reverb. By turning this to the right of the center, we can emphasize the selected notes, which can give our reverb a really nice musical quality, and it means it can act almost like an extra melodic element in a track. This can work particularly well when creating soundscapes and ambience. If we turn the temper control to the left of its central position, it de-emphasizes the resonances around the selected note. This could be useful for creating reverb tails that stay out of the way of other specific melodic elements in your track and helps create more space. Down the bottom of the UI we have these range controls. These let us adjust the frequency range within our reverb that the tempering is applied to. If I hit play, you can see this is overlaid on a spectral analyzer that lets us see the frequency of our reverb. At either end of this we have high and low pass filters, which let us rein in the frequencies of our wet reverb signal. Another handy visualization tool is the Notescape visualizer around the edge of the temper control. This gives us real-time visualization of the pitches being emphasized. The final set of controls are more traditional reverb tools. You have decay, size and mix controls, which let us alter the characteristics of the reverb and blend between the wet and dry signals. Over to the left here we also have a pre-delay control. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we have this modal response drop-down. This lets us alter the overall character of the reverb by selecting between three different spaces. The first option here is a bright room reverb, which is a digital reverb based around the sound of Eventide's SP 2016 hardware. The second, large studio, is based on the sound of a recording studio live room. The final, synthetic space, is a more shimmery sound that uses a theoretical large space that causes higher frequencies to arrive slightly ahead of lower ones. Up at the top of the UI you can see that Temperance Lite comes with a stock of presets to get us started. Let's take a listen to a few of these in context. I've got a few simple track elements here and we're going to apply Temperance Lite in a few different places. First, let's take a look at these piano chords. With Temperance Lite turned off, you can hear they're kind of dry and not that interesting. Let's turn them into something a little bit more ambient and washy. For that, I'm going to use this airy minor drone preset. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to hit at some notes around the D minor key of our track. You can hear with this fully wet, it's turning our piano into a really nice kind of washy soundscape. If I change this temper control, you can hear how it emphasizes or de-emphasizes those notes. I can adjust these frequency controls and filters to target specific frequencies. And if I reduce the mix, I can blend it nicely with the original piano. Next, I'm going to set up Temperance Lite on a send over here. I'm going to send some of my drums to this to create a cool ambient effect. For this, we're going to use this Centaur EE preset. And let's just solo this. What I'm going to do again is I'm going to emphasize specific notes. Here, this is quite quiet at the moment. But you can hear it's turning these drums into quite a cool ambient little noise that suits the key of our track. Let's hear that in context. That's already creating quite a cool little effect. But what we're going to do to make it even more interesting is modulate this tempo control. I've got an LFO here in Ableton. I'm going to just map that to this tempo control here. And I'm having that at a free running slow speed. Now if I solo this send, you can hear that creates a really cool, interesting effect as it emphasizes and de-emphasizes that tempering. Let's turn it up a little bit. And it creates an interesting effect as you can kind of hear those drums phasing in and out with our little melodic effect. To show you another way we could use Temperance Lite, I've got it on a little drum rack here, which I'm going to solo. And we've got some really nice presets here that we can use to create some fun effects that we might want to resample and use elsewhere in the track. So firstly, I'm using this ghostly callback preset here. And you can hear I've got some very standard 808 and 909 drum samples. Let's engage Temperance Lite and hear what this can do. So with this fully wet, you can hear that ghostly callback preset can turn these percussive sounds into some cool little melodic effects. And obviously we can select pitches as we want to create something that would sit within the key of our track. Sounds particularly cool if we engage some delay as well. Create some nice dubby effects. Another good preset to try here is this creep reverb. If we turn the mix up here, you can hear how that turns these percussive sounds into some nice kind of horror-ish effects. Again, we can play with the frequency to change how that sounds. and create some nice ambient effects that we might want to use elsewhere in the track. I've got one final instance of Temperance Lite set up in this track, which is on this little percussive loop here. And this is just an example of how we can use it as a more standard reverb. So I've just opened it up in its default setting, and I'm not really using the tempering here. I've got a fairly short delay in size, the bright room space, and we can use the filters just to roll off some of the low and high end, just to create more of a classic room reverb. That's a few quick ways that we can use Temperance Lite in action. Because this is a really creative plugin, there's loads more we could explore. Temperance Lite is free through to December 31st this year. You can grab your copy at the link below. Thanks for watching.